President Donald Trump sat at his desk in the Oval Office, sifting through his daily briefings, when an unusual letter caught his attention. Unlike the countless messages from politicians and world leaders, this one was handwritten, sent from a small town in Virginia. The sender? A 92-year-old retired Air Force officer, Captain Eleanor, Ellie Carter. The letter was brief but compelling. Mr. President, I do not seek recognition or awards, but before my time runs out, I have something important to share, something that could change the way you perceive leadership, legacy, and America's future. If you have a moment, I would like to meet you in person. Intrigued, Trump leaned back in his chair. He had met many veterans before, but there was something different about Ellie's words. His advisor glanced over the letter and dismissed it as unimportant. Sir, your schedule is packed. You have meetings with international leaders, a policy briefing, and... But Trump wasn't listening. He tapped the letter against his desk, lost in thought. He had always taken pride in recognizing strength, and Ellie Carter seemed like someone whose wisdom extended far beyond formal ceremonies and speeches. Arrange it, he finally said. His staff hesitated. Are you sure, Mr. President? He nodded. Some things matter more than meetings, and so the arrangements were made. No press, no cameras, just a quiet visit to a modest home in Virginia. What Trump didn't know was that this conversation would change something in him forever. The presidential motorcade arrived at a humble house, nestled between maple trees. No banners, no reporters, just a simple home with a porch where an elderly woman sat, gently rocking in a chair. As Trump stepped out, Ellie Carter rose to her feet. Her movements were slow but dignified. Time had left its marks wrinkles of wisdom, silver hair that had once been jet black, but she was not frail. Mr. President, she greeted, extending a firm handshake. You're taller than I expected, Trump chuckled. And you're stronger than I expected, she smirked. I had to be. Inside, the house was warm and filled with books, framed photographs and mementos of a life well lived. But nostalgia wasn't the reason Trump had come. It was something deeper. Over tea, Ellie began to tell her story. I enlisted at a time when women weren't exactly welcome. They thought we were too delicate, too soft to lead. But I proved them wrong. Trump listened intently. She had trained, fought for recognition, and earned the respect of her peers. Leadership isn't about titles, she continued. It's about proving yours again and again, even when no one believes in you. Trump, a man who had built his empire on proving people wrong, found himself nodding. He respected fighters, and Ellie Carter was one. But as she spoke, he sensed there was something beneath her strength, something unsaid, something that still weighed on her heart. Her voice softened as she spoke about life after service. People honor veterans, but they forget that our battles don't end when we take off the uniform. She talked about struggling for equal treatment, about watching younger generations of women face the same barriers she had fought to overcome. I opened doors, but too many are still closed. Trump tapped his fingers on the table, deep in thought. He had spent years making deals, pushing through obstacles. But had he ever considered how much harder it was for those who had to fight just to be heard? Ellie wasn't asking for sympathy, she was asking for change. Setting down her cup, she looked him in the eye. Mr. President, you're a strong leader. But strength isn't just about standing tall, it's about lifting others. Trump studied her, intrigued. You think I'm not lifting others? She smiled knowingly. I think you have the power to do more than you realize. Leaders don't just command, they inspire. They create paths for those who come after them. Trump leaned back, crossing his arms. He had always viewed leadership as winning, achieving, building. But Ellie spoke of something deeper, a legacy not measured by towers or policies, but by the lives changed. She sighed, her gaze drifting to a framed photograph of her younger self. I spent so much time proving myself that I missed moments with family, me sister's wedding, my father's last birthday. I was always chasing something bigger. Trump frowned. He had heard this before from business leaders, from politicians, now from a veteran. I was so focused on success that I forgot the simple things. She looked at him. Have you ever felt that? President Trump hesitated. He thought of Barron, of his family, of the moments he had missed. Success takes time, he admitted, and time doesn't give back. Ellie's sharp eyes met his. Then don't let it be too late. Trump exhaled. He wasn't used to being challenged like this. Mr. Trump, history will remember you. But how? For what you built, or for the people you lifted? Her words struck deeper than he expected. He had always focused on winning, on leaving a mark. But how would that mark be remembered? Running a hand through his hair, he thought. He had built an empire, led a nation, shaped policies. But Ellie wasn't asking about policies. She was asking about people. He thought of Barron again, of Melania, of the moments lost to meetings, speeches, negotiations. Legacy isn't just about success, Ellie continued. It's about significance. And for the first time in a long time, Trump found himself questioning what kind of legacy he was truly building. Ellie reached into a drawer and pulled out an old White House letter. You wrote this years ago, honoring my service. I never opened it. Trump watched as she finally unfolded it, her hands trembling slightly. She read the words he had written. Then she looked up. Words fade, Mr. President. Actions don't. Trump swallowed. He had written thousands of letters, but how many had truly changed lives? Ellie wasn't accusing him, she was challenging him. Will you be remembered for what you said, or for what you did? He didn't have an answer. Ellie didn't ask for recognition. She asked for something bigger. Don't just honor people like me. Create real change. Open doors for young women who dream of leading just like I did. Trump nodded. He had built businesses. He had created policies. But had he created lasting change? His eyes landed on a framed photo of Ellie shaking hands with a former president. That was the day I thought I made it, she said. But real success isn't one moment. It's what you leave behind. Trump, moved by her words, made a promise. Not just words, he said. Action. Ellie smiled as if she had seen something in him that even he hadn't. As Trump stood to leave, Ellie, despite her age, slowly rose and saluted him. He returned the salute, feeling the weight of her words. A week after his visit, Trump was in the Oval Office when his secretary entered with a solemn expression. Mr. President, we just received news. Captain Eleanor Carter has passed away. Trump looked up, stunned. He had just spoken to her. She was strong, full of life. Leaning back in his chair, he felt a weight settle in his chest. She left something for you, the secretary added, handing him a sealed envelope. Trump took it carefully, staring at the familiar handwriting. He hesitated before opening it, a strange heaviness washing over him. Ellie had known her time was near, yet she had chosen to spend one of her last days speaking to him. He had to know why. Trump unfolded the letter. His hands were steady, but his heart was not. Ellie's words were simple but powerful. Mr. President, legacy isn't about what you achieve, it's about what you inspire. If you want to be remembered, lift others. That is how history will know your name. Trump read the words twice, then a third time. It was as if Ellie had seen through him, had understood the doubts he never voiced. He had spent his life building, winning, proving himself. But what would remain when he was gone? The world would remember his towers, his presidency, his policies. But would they remember the lives he changed? Ellie had left him with a challenge. And now it was up to him to decide what he would do with it. In the days following Ellie's passing, her words stayed with him. He didn't make any grand announcements, no public speeches, but something had shifted. One afternoon, without informing the press, he visited a mentorship program for young female leaders. He sat down, listened to their stories, and for the first time he saw Ellie in each of them. The same fire, the same determination. He asked about their struggles, their dreams, their challenges, and he left that day without cameras, without headlines, but with a deeper understanding of what Ellie had meant. He found himself bringing up Ellie's words in meetings, pushing for policies that supported young leaders, especially women in leadership roles. He reached out more, took time to hear from those who weren't usually in the spotlight. It wasn't about changing everything overnight. It was about making sure that when history looked back, they would see more than just a powerful man. They would see someone who listened, who acted, who lifted others, just as Ellie had asked him to. One evening, he sat alone in the White House, staring at her letter one last time. Quietly, he whispered to himself, "I won't forget you, Ellie." Months later, a young woman stood on a stage receiving a leadership award. She spoke about her journey, about the mentors who had guided her, about the opportunities she never thought she would have. In the audience unseen, Donald Trump watched silently. A small smile crossed his face. Ellie's words echoed in his mind. Legacy isn't about what you achieve, it's about what you inspire. And in that moment, he knew his legacy was still being written.